Speaking of freak athletes, Caitlin Clark effect has now hit the WNBA. It has been announced today.
Defense. I think we've won every single game. We've kept our opponents under 84 and obviously 74. So
Cheryl Reeve recently made a bold decision that caught everyone off guard.
And it's beyond just kind of saying, okay, well, the Indiana Fever are coming and they're selling out and you're just sitting back and watching it. How other ways can you monetize and capitalize on it? That's obviously a business, layered thing, but that's how I think you could capitalize.
She completely revamped her strategy regarding Caitlin Clark, which is quite unexpected.
We haven't seen him a lot, I'll say that. What I have seen, coming into the season, watching her in college, I said the single best thing that she does that young players don't do is she plays at an incredible pace.
This really highlights her expertise as a coach. There's no doubt about that. However, it seems like she reached a breaking point with all the chaos surrounding the Olympics and the season.
And pace can get you really, really far, and there's great value in that. Pace and passing, I think, are her two greatest things. I know the sexier part is probably the logo 3, but the pace and the passing is what makes her exceptional.
During the All-Star game, she likely realized that Clark is a force to be reckoned with. Rather than just trying to shut her down, Reeve cleverly changed her focus to devising a plan to beat the Fever, and it paid off. I've always thought of Cheryl Reeve as one of the top coaches in the league, and her history backs that up. The way the Lynx have performed is impressive, and it's intriguing to see her adapt so effectively. Before we get into more details, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe.
In my mind, the importance of the W, you're all standing here. I don't think it's just for Maya Moore's jersey into the rafters. At least I hope some of you are here for that. But every city that she's in, I thought it was really cool her senior year of college to see that take hold. It wasn't just the Iowa fans. It wasn't just a sold out Carver. She became a road show.
Just like Cheryl Reeve pointed out in her press conference yesterday. Isn't it funny? When you listen to this interview, she really seems pretty chill. It's fascinating because when the conversation shifts to Caitlin Clark, she appears completely relaxed. Unlike before, when she seemed so tense, now she's just casually discussing Clark. In a previous chat, she was all like, I really don't care.
I think it's more of, it's the official announcement has not been made by USA Basketball. So it'd be premature for me to have any conversations about any player or anything until I see that announcement.
But this time, it's more along the lines of, oh, by the way, I'm not coaching Team USA. You could definitely sense the pressure she felt last time, especially during the All-Star game. I wouldn't be surprised if she went back and watched the game footage, particularly from the All-Star match, and thought, we lost because we were too focused on Caitlin Clark.
And I don't know that, and I don't want to slight anybody in college, but I don't remember seeing that in my time. And that's held true.
She probably realized we should have prioritized winning instead of trying to contain her. After all, Clark managed to rack up 10 assists in just the first 12 minutes. It seems that overly fixating on Caitlin Clark might have cost her team a few games. Now, though, she appears much more at ease. Plus, having Collier back likely boosts her confidence, knowing she's in a good position to win this game.
That 36 of 40 Indiana Fever games will be nationally broadcast next year. Last year, the Indiana Fever had one game nationally televised. Next year, 36 of 40, let's get her on TV.
I'd say there are definitely a ton of reporters here, way more than normal. I get the feeling she knows they're all just hanging around, eager for her to slip up. Honestly, she made some valid points. It's kind of like that saying, if you can't beat them, join them, right? And then there's her comment about wishing one of them was on our team. It seems like she's starting to realize that all the hype can actually work in her favor.
even though we probably didn't, shoot the ball the greatest, we just found a way to win. We're resilient. We came into the quarter down 7 and just battled.
At the same time, she's acknowledging her own tendency to be a bit petty, even though she's an excellent coach. We saw that with the whole Diamante incident. She definitely has her moments. Additionally, I think she's starting to understand that with all the media scrutiny, it's often better to give them the answers they want. Keeping the media on your side can really pay off. There's a reason she was picked as the coach. It wasn't just because she's the top in the league. There were plenty of emotional factors at play that led to her being removed from Team USA. She's made her share of blunders, especially in interviews, which might have painted Cheryl Reeve in a less favorable light compared to other coaches in WNBA history.
It's really tough. I think every Olympic cycle there's a story of a snub.
I was just of the mindset that Caitlin Clark needed to be on this team.
You know, it really feels like things have changed lately. It's not just about letting bygones be bygones. It's obvious that she really outmaneuvered Cheryl and Christy's sides when it comes to coaching.
Attendance is down. Viewership is down. Guess what? Nobody gives a rat's ass. Not even a dead rat's ass about WNBA players playing in the Olympics. Well, Stephen A. Smith chimed in on it, and he chimed in, I think, very adroitly.
See, we want to act like marketing and business don't play a role in all of this. That's why you should have had Caitlin Clark.
The difference in their coaching skills was pretty remarkable. I've never seen such a clear gap before. Plus, we can't overlook the fact that the owner might be giving her some hints, saying, remember, she's a Minnesota Lynx fan. We need to keep her in our corner. She could be crucial for us down the line.
Women's NCAA Final Four tickets are double the price of men's. I cannot think. This morning I sat down and I went back 10 years, I went back 15 years to the last men's college basketball player that was this popular.
The Phoenix Mercury are already setting their sights on Caitlin Clark, and since she supports the Lynx, it's likely she'll land there. If you're part of a well-run organization, you know Caitlin probably sees Cheryl Reeve as a role model.
The league could not be in a more exciting place than it is right now.
Certainly the attention on women's basketball right now is at an all-time high, and this league has been poised and ready for at least the last 2 decades for this moment. We have the star power, we have the elite play on the floor, but it's been a bit of a hidden gem. Well, it's not going to be hidden much longer, and a lot of that is because of this draft class and Caitlin Clark. The way she has driven attendance, the way she has driven viewers to watch the games on television is going to elevate the WNBA to the next level.
You know, Rebecca, it's amazing because I went back to watch the draft from last season.
She grew up admiring those Lynx teams and players, especially someone like Maya Moore. When you look up to a team, you naturally admire the coach too. It's kind of like how we looked up to Bielsa at Leeds United. He was a real inspiration for us. She definitely had aspirations to play basketball, probably dreaming of joining Maya Moore on the Lynx. Of course, Maya has retired now. Still, given how incredible the Lynx were during their championship seasons, it's easy to picture her wanting to follow in Maya's footsteps, especially after her sophomore year in high school when she became one of the top recruits in the nation. At that moment, she likely thought, I want to be part of the Lynx and continue Maya's legacy. It's smart for her to keep a solid connection with a passionate fan of the team. Overall, this situation is quite fascinating.
Talking with Sue Bird, I think she uses a great word to describe what it's like watching Caitlin, and she says it's thrilling. We know she's great. We know she's captivated the country. Why? What about Caitlin makes her so captivated?
Caitlin Clark is different from any other player we have ever seen in the women's game, and it starts with the distance with which she shoots the basketball. We've never seen a player shoot from that deep range with that kind of efficiency to spread the floor the way that she does, and as a result can not only get to the rim, but can find open teammates. Simply said, never seen a player like this before.
You know, it's incredible. Her range makes you have to guard her from 35 feet away from the basket, but Caitlin is also quick. She's elusive. She has incredible body control, so you run out on her to try to prevent her from knocking down that three, which she can do, and she has the ability to blow by you.
We can now move beyond the idea that Cheryl Reeve has issues with Caitlin Clark. The truth is, opinions should be based on the facts at hand. Up until now, it seemed that Cheryl had serious reservations about Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, along with the overall fan dynamic.
She has the vision to find her teammates defending her. You are in constant contradiction with yourself when you're guarding Caitlin Clark. She also has to sit there like she can't hear us talking about her, which is handling wonderfully. Caitlin, proud of you on all fronts, but proud of you for handling this.
But that's in the past, and we can refocus on appreciating Cheryl's coaching skills.
Every time Caitlin gets fouled, we can't make it seem like she was assaulted. Why like a Stephen A. Smith? It was that important to you to run the Kennedy Carter hip check, right? That was everywhere. But yet, you didn't even discuss what Alyssa Thomas did to Angel Reese. Anytime a basketball play happens towards Caitlin, it's because players are envious, they're targeting her, they're jealous, they're haters, they're racist. I keep going on and on. Mm-hmm. Kennedy Carter is one of the best guards in the league.
Cheryl Swoops herself. She recently spoke on her podcast, Queens of the Court, and didn't mention the rookie when speaking of Indiana's rise in the standing. Here's what Cheryl Swoops had to say. Look at this quote here. I think the Olympic break really helped Indiana. I'm going to shout out to Lexi Hull. I'm a big Lexi Hull fan. Lexi Hull shot the leather off the ball in their game against Seattle. Kelsey Mitchell is just stroking. She's just shooting the basketball. Aaliyah Boston, almost a triple-double. If Indiana continues to play the way they're playing like this, they too are going to move up in the standings, end quote.
Cheryl Swoops, former WNBA player. We all know that. Current host of Queen of the Court podcast. She had some thoughts. She's had some thoughts previously about Caitlin. She would later have to apologize of those thoughts being uninformed, she shoots like 60 shots a game, just being a little bit inflammatory and critical without any actual analysis. And she apologized for that during the women's college season, and she's now stepped in it again.
It looks like Elle Duncan from ESPN is stepping up to back Cheryl Swoops following her recent viral remarks. The ongoing situation with Swoops continues as Duncan chats about it on her podcast. She's been careful in her comments about Caitlin Clark and Swoops, especially after receiving criticism a few weeks ago while attempting to clarify her stance.
By saying that Indiana is in the playoffs right now without Caitlin Clark. By saying that Katie Lou Samuelson's really more integral in terms of her two-way ability than Caitlin, and also saying that, and I don't besmirch her for this because lots of people are making arguments for whether they think that it is Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark that should be Rookie of the Year. I've said that I think it's Caitlin, but that I could understand someone making an argument for the other. It's not hate to make an argument for Angel Reese. So I don't take any issue with that part. But the other part, it just feels like there is something there, and I'm not really sure what is not connecting with Cheryl and why.
From a media perspective, it's vital to cover all players rather than just those with whom you have personal connections. This is essentially what Swoops conveyed on Twitter, explaining that she doesn't comment on Clark due to their lack of a personal relationship. However, many creators, even those without ties to Clark, have refrained from criticizing her. With each of Swoops' remarks about the Fever, it increasingly seems as though she might be coming across as resentful. I understand Elle Duncan's perspective when she argues that not every critique aimed at Caitlin Clark should be labeled as hate. I completely see her point. However, Cheryl Swoops' comments seem to target Caitlin specifically. It's clear that she has an issue with Caitlin, which is hard to ignore. Let's look at what Ella discussed in her podcast today.
And I don't know if some of that is driven in sort of the hurt that she felt from the fan base or some of the attacks that were leveled at her after she had those comments a few months ago. But this feels really, really, really off par. This just doesn't feel right at all. And it is starting to feel a little bit like hate from Cheryl, who just in this particular space, stop. If the Fever, who won a handful of games last year, are in the playoffs this year, then you have to understand that a large part of that is Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Either one of them. I would have accepted either one of those.
She called out those she believes are unjustly negative towards Caitlin. Having faced similar situations, I can relate to the criticism that arises from both sides of this issue. I also want to clarify any misunderstandings, so let's avoid further tweets about it. Elle made a compelling analogy comparing Caitlin to Voldemort from Harry Potter, suggesting that discussing her has become a sensitive topic. Praising Caitlin can make some feel like you're just trying to appease her fans, while criticism can lead to being labeled a hater. This creates a complicated atmosphere around conversations about her. The negativity seems to shadow any discussion about Caitlin, making it challenging to engage in a fair way.
Respectfully, Cheryl Swoops, you have any idea how that makes you look? You have any idea how that serves to stain any kind of critique of Caitlin Clark, because that gives fodder to those who believe she's being hated on and ostracized to some degree? Do you realize that, Cheryl Swoops, you're insane to do that?
It's not merely a debate about who's the better player, like Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. This situation is distinct, and it's understandable that some might prefer to avoid it entirely. Yet, as journalists, we must confront these issues, especially since Caitlin is such a significant figure in the sport. Recently, Dennis Rodman made a bizarre remark about LeBron, claiming he only has a layup. I was shocked to hear that. Then there's Anthony Edwards, who asserts that Michael Jordan was the best simply because players back then lacked skills, suggesting that today's athletes are significantly more talented. These are the types of debates we engage in, and they can certainly become heated. The situation with Caitlin Clark adds another layer of difficulty, making it tough to navigate. Some people having experienced racism and hostility may want to avoid these discussions entirely. Personally, I'm open to exploring them, as it's part of our duty as journalists. After all, Clark is arguably the most discussed player in the WNBA this year.
No matter what stage you're on, if you're at the highest stage, there's always going to be people that are critiquing you. There's always going to be people that are complimenting you. And I think that just speaks to how I was raised too. I've never been one to weigh the opinions of the haters too much, or, I was told, like, you know, at the level you feel all the praise, that's going to be the same level you feel all the hate. So, like, I feel like I just try to stay right in the middle. And
alongside other major stories, it's essential to foster an environment of understanding here. Criticizing someone for their opinions on this topic isn't constructive. There are many ready to jump on anyone who shows even a hint of negativity, eager to voice their disapproval.
Because Cheryl Swoops, you're one of the greatest players ever in the history of basketball. See, you won a championship in college at Texas Tech. You won 3 Olympic gold medals. You won 4 WNBA championships. You know basketball. You know basketball better than me. You know basketball than any of the pundits. You know basketball better than most of the men that play basketball. There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlin Clark's name out.
For some people, tackling this subject can feel so daunting that they'd rather just avoid it entirely. I completely understand that sentiment and want to recognize those who might be thinking, whatever I say, I'll face criticism, so I'll just skip it and focus on other topics instead. That perspective is definitely part of the dialogue. I recently came across a metaphor that struck a chord with me. Being at the top of a pyramid means you're exposed to scrutiny from every angle, and that's when the arrows start flying. Caitlin Clark is right at that peak, and the conversations surrounding her are incredibly diverse.
Of that soliloquy that you dropped about the Indiana Fever. Stop it. You know that. Stop it. More. If you had talked about it more, they would have played more games. Like I had the power to go up to ESPN and say, you know, directors and producers and cameramen and everybody else flocked to the WNBA at the time when it wasn't nearly as popular as it was today.
It almost seems like some individuals might even embrace the criticism we've seen. Many commenters noted that depending on which metrics you look at, Elle has a solid argument, while Gary could also make a case in the MVP discussion.
This becomes, see, the women of the W are hating on Caitlin and they hate her. And we've covered that on this show plenty. What I appreciate is that with time, and with the benefit of hindsight on our side, I am noticing much more calm in terms of people saying, this is her opinion. This is not the opinion of everyone in the W. I think there have been enough cases of women in the W over the last few months supporting Caitlin, showing their support. I think there's been enough of that now that people can now take something that's seemingly inflammatory and give it and lay it at the feet of that person, as opposed to making it an entire diatribe on everyone in the W and how all of these Black women hate Caitlin Clark.
It's important to acknowledge that Caitlin Clark draws a lot of attention, and her influence is certainly making waves in the sports arena.
All Cheryl Swoops did was validate all the speculation that there's folks hating on Caitlin Clark. That's all she did. Because to know basketball like Cheryl Swoops does, to be as accomplished as she is, to be the Hall of Famer that she is, all accolades that are well-deserved. And I'm certainly not attacking Cheryl Swoops the person, because I think she's a wonderful person. She's certainly always been nothing but class and nice to me.
Let's move to our second story today. In a scenario where you'd expect a newcomer in the WNBA or NBA to concentrate on refining their skills, especially something as essential as making close-range shots, you might think their focus would be sharp. However, we often see highlights that feature players taking only a handful of shots and boosting their stats with offensive rebounds, and surprisingly, some fans actually cheer for that.
Other players are benefiting from it. It's not just them, it's not just this rookie class.